All right, welcome back to the second step in my tutorial series on building a Django and React app from scratch. Last tutorial or last video, we set up a Python version, virtual environment, pip, and then we created a virtual environment with Python 3.11. And now we're going to start a Django app. And through this tutorial, we'll probably install Django. We'll run their create app process, and then we might get to defining a model. And we're also going to have to install Postgres, and then perhaps after that we will be able to define a model and create a database. So we'll see how far we get. To start, I'm on the Django documentation for writing your first Django app. This documentation assumes we have Django installed, which we don't yet. So I'm going to click that. It assumes you have Python installed, which is what we did. We're going to skip the database installation because I know you can do it later. So just go to install Django, install official release. To get to this documentation, actually, you can just do Django getting started. And you should find like a part 1. And then you can go Django installed, install Django, install official release, and we can do it with Python. You see they also encourage using them. And now we can just copy this. Let's go back to our terminal. Make sure that you are in your virtual environment. So last time we created the venv, do sort then activate. You should see a little, it actually might depend on your terminal, but you might see a little venv thing there, or if you do Python version, you should see the version we installed. And then just paste this in here. Installing all of the things, perfect. If we go back here, that's installing Django done. So next steps, you can verify that we have Django installed by going into a Python shell. I'm going to assume it's installed. You can also test the version there. Let's test the version real quick. So python-m Django version 4.1.3, that is the most up-to-date version as of this video. And now we're going to create a project with this line here. And it's been a long time since I've done this, so I'm not sure like how many steps are involved in this. Django admin start project with the commands. My site is the name of what you want to call it, so I'm going to call this Django boilerplate. Oh, maybe it doesn't like dashes. Doesn't like dashes. So that ran. And now we have a Django boilerplate. And actually, there's more steps to this. So after you run that, that should succeed. You should have the folder that you named. And if you go into it, there's another folder in the manage.py file. And if we go back to the documentation, we're going to continue. So here it explains what else you might see. So inside that next folder, you'll have settings, URLs, ASCII. That's a new one. Oh, okay, ASCII compatible web service server project. And now we can run this app. I didn't know you could run an app without creating an app, which I'll explain in a bit. But if you run Python manage.py run server, there are migrations to apply. These migrations are going to be the migrations that are already created by Django. So, okay, there's actually a lot to pick up here. So I just ran Python manage.py migrate. There are 2 commands you're going to run often when working with the Django project and databases. One of them is make migrations. What make migrations does is it creates a file that says, this is how the database is modified at this point in time, or the modification you want to make based off file changes. And then migrate looks at these pretty much text files and says, oh, this file says we want to add a column ID or we want to add a column first name to contact. And migrate takes those files, reads them, and then actually modifies a database. So what we did here was running migrate, looked at a bunch of files that Django defined, and it modifies the database to have all of the tables and the columns that you need to run any Django app. And if we look at the log output, you'll see applying contact types 0001 initial, and then there's auth, admin, and sessions, and then the increment. So in auth, there's migration file 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all the way up to 12, and then some of them there's only 1. So migration files have to run in order. So let's say the first one creates a table, the second one might add a column, the third one might remove that column, and if 3 ran before 2, it wouldn't be possible, it would fail. So migrations run in order. The different contact types, auth, admin, those are applications within Django. So you'll have a Django project, and then generally you try and create separate applications that are like slices of functionality that can work together or not work together. So there's probably a lot of stuff with that, but we just run migrate. We should have a database running now. I think by default it sets you up with SQLite. So let's run server. That runs the app. And now you can open it up if I can type. Woohoo! So here's your Django app to start. It's a cool start page. That wasn't there last time I ran this. Okay, so you have a running app now, or a running project. So now, if you scroll down the documentation further, we're actually going to create an application. Once again, Django projects are made up of individual applications, or they can have a variety of applications. So Python manage.py. We stop this, Control C. So Python manage.py also, whenever you're doing Python manage.py, you're running Django commands. Django has a bunch of built-in commands, such as the ones that we've started running. And later on, we're also going to set it up so you can run your own. But there's another command they have called start app. And because this, I'm going to create a couple of kind of dummy tables that aren't going to be a part of my final boilerplate. So I'm going to create an example app, and I'm going to create another app later. So I'm naming my app example. And now you'll see we have our project folder, our app folder, and still that manage.py. And here's your SQLite database. So let's look at all this, actually. We haven't looked at the file explorer, but if we go in here, here's your project folder. Within your project folder, you have an app folder and then some basic project functionality as well. And then you have your manage.py. I'll dive into what all of these files are at some point, probably pretty quick, but the documentation also does an amazing job at explaining what each of these are. Okay, yeah, I'm actually going to do it now because we're starting to get into functionality and I almost want to like stop immediately because there's a few things I want to do in here before we just switch all the way to React. But if we go back, so to start, if you're in your project, there's a few important files here. Settings is where like a lot of your project configuration is. Your secret key is a very secure thing that other people shouldn't have. It doesn't matter for this tutorial because I'm going to change it, or I'll change it before I go to production or before I launch anything. But you never want people to know what your secret key is because that's used for encryption and a variety of other things, I believe. But yeah, this is just where like a lot of your kind of configuration for Django is set up. Depending on how you set up your project, there's also URLs. So this is where you define like paths that you go to in the browser. You can see it's already set up an admin path for us. So if you're running the app and you go to /admin, you'll get a different screen. It's not running right now. And then within the app, you see here, like automatically created this migrations folder, which is where I was explaining earlier. You run make migrations and it creates files that say how a database has been modified over time. Admins to add functionality to the admin board. So whenever you create a Django app, they automatically create like a data access management console kind of thing, which I will show eventually. Models is where you define database tables, and test where you write tests, and views is where you create views. And views, I'm not going to dive into yet, but like if you're ever requesting information or trying to render something, the view is where you're going to do it. Okay. So next step I actually want to do is we want to get rid of this SQLite database. I would like to use Postgres. I'm comfortable with Postgres. It has more functionality. So let's do that. I saw some documentation somewhere here where it was like, hey, if you want to use a different database, you can. Database installation information. If you are using Postgres, you'll need the psychopg package. Okay, let's install this package. Install. Perfect. So that's psychopg installed. We skipped this. And let's see if that's good enough. Go to the Postgres notes. Mac OS, use like pSQL. Do I not have it installed yet? I thought I did install it. Oh no, we installed the package which allows you to use Postgres. We didn't actually install Postgres. So you'll have to install Postgres. The psychopg2 package is what allows Django or Python to use the Postgres database. Apparently this takes a little bit. Have a sip of your whatever beverage you're drinking, hopefully water. Okay, let's just wait for that, and then I'll show you what I was going to show you once that app's ready. Or maybe I'll call the video here. I'll call it here, and we'll start the next one once Postgres is installed. All right, now it's just going to finish, whatever. Oh, and now I'm going to run into M1 chip issues. I wonder if that's why it took so long. Yeah, so it was just struggling for a while, I guess. Wild. All right, probably still going to take a while. get Postgres installed, and we will start up in the next video. Thanks.